You try to be good. You try to be fair. You try to be liked. You spend so much energy proving you are cooperative that you stop proving you are in command of yourself. You say yes because you don't want to look difficult. You talk quickly so no one suspects you of hiding anything. And you spend to prove you're generous even when your account pleads for mercy. You rush to answer messages. You smooth every bump in a meeting. You pick up costs that weren't yours because silence felt risky and a boundary felt rude. You count smiles and compliments and great energy as if they were deposits, and then you stare at a balance that still looks anemic while someone quieter, stricter, and calmer gets richer right next to you. Here's the truth you've sidestepped. You are not short on talent. You are short on control. And control, far more than charm, far more than chatter, far more than cliquey applause, is what compounds into power and money. The turn that unlocks wealth will feel impolite when you first try it. You will stop working to be universally liked and start working to be taken seriously. Machiavelli didn't write a finance book, but the spine of his thinking was built for survival, incentives, and results. He shows you that affection is unstable, and that safety sits closer to seriousness than to sweetness, that borrowing other people's muscle is a slow trap, that spending to look generous is the fastest road to contempt and empty coffers, and that luck hits like weather, so you reinforce the levees while the sky is blue. Those are not edgy slogans, they are working rules you can test in contracts, calendars, and ledgers, the places where prosperity is born and illusions die. Start with the mistake that keeps you broke. Trying to buy reputation with generosity you cannot sustain. You cover costs to look big-hearted. You subsidize dysfunction to keep the peace. You donate time you should have sold because you're scared of being called selfish. Rulers who advertised generosity burned through the treasury, then scrambled to refill it with taxes and tricks that bred resentment. The smarter course was disciplined spending, even at the price of being called mean, because thrift protected capacity and prevented the backlash that sinks regimes and businesses alike. Translate that plainly. Don't bribe your future with today's applause. Fund what you can maintain. Refuse offers that stretch you thin. The person who spends for approval buys a brief moment of warmth and a long winter of pressure. The person who invests for endurance accepts the chill of being misunderstood now to harvest resilience later. Now face the famous tension between being liked and being taken seriously. You can want both, but when you must choose to be the person whose word sets the clock. Make your agreements rest on deadlines, invoices, and late fees rather than on vibes. Be the person whose no is clean and whose yes arrives on schedule. If a client tries to slide payment, you don't dump a monologue about your worth. You enforce the term everyone accepted when the sun was out. People should worry more about missing your deadlines than they should about glowing from your compliments, and they should never feel humiliated by your enforcement. That is the trick. Steadiness without spite. Consequence without contempt. The safest posture in a world that worships charm for 10 minutes and then forgets it is a posture of enforced clarity. Then fix your posture in negotiation. If you sprint to fill every pause, you sell yourself at a discount. If you let silence stretch, you begin to see who thrives on fog and who lives in daylight. Quiet is not sulking. It is a market test. The impulsive fill the gap with concessions you didn't request. The manipulative expose their tricks by over-talking. The competent keep their composure, a sign you're dealing with someone you can build with. In many rooms, money flows toward the steady hand because steadiness signals competence and control. You don't defend your value with a speech. You prove it with your pace. One of the most profitable habits you can build is to let a question hang for 2 extra beats and make the other side face the real price of their request. Wear both animals. The fox and the lion are not costumes. They are cash flow strategy. The fox spots traps. The exposure-only collaboration that eats your week. The floating interest rate that spikes when you can least afford it. The clause that calls your work made for hire. The friendly investor whose terms quietly seize your steering wheel. The lion carries the authority to say no without spinning up a justification and the readiness to move once a window opens. If you try to be all lion, you charge into legal snares. If you try to be all fox, you never close. You are strongest when you can sense the snare and still take the hill. Be both, the fox for the snares and the lion for the wolves, and you'll find your calendar fills with better fights and better allies. Look at your dependence on platforms, patrons, or a single paycheck. Borrowed armies fought for pay or for loyalty to someone else. They looked powerful until the bill came due. Then the weapons pointed wherever the real owner directed. Your modern mercenaries are exclusive distribution channels, single client revenue streams, financing that can be yanked, or clout you rent from algorithms. It feels safe because it's familiar. It's dangerous because it isn't yours. Build your own force, transferable skills, direct customer lists, multiple channels, and cash buffers. Size looks impressive, ownership pays. Ask yourself, if this platform vanished tonight, would my work still reach the people who need it? If the answer is no, your throne sits on someone else's floor. Weather is real. Luck is not a fairy, it's a river. In flood, it tears down forests and towns. In calm seasons, wise people build banks and channels so the next surge hurts less. That is the blueprint for your finances. Build embankments while the water is low. Automate transfers into reserves every time money enters. Draft downgrade rules you will activate when revenue falls. Choose fixed costs that flex without panic. When fortune swells, you harvest. When she recedes, you are still standing. The river does not negotiate, your preparation does. Half the world will always be outside your hands, but the portion that belongs to you expands every time you strengthen the banks in fair weather. A crucial correction follows. Reputation does not equal generosity. Playing the benefactor to earn love is the shortest route to bankruptcy and backlash. Restraint, though mocked, preserves your ability to act and keeps you out of the resentment zone. For a business owner, that means pricing so you can deliver excellence and enforcing those prices humanely. For an employee, it means refusing unpaid extra work disguised as team spirit and instead making a clean case for how your contribution moved revenue, reduced risk, or saved time. For families, it means giving within a plan that will not collapse next month's rent. You can appear tight today and be called reliable for years, or you can throw money at being liked and become the villain when you cannot keep it up. Choose the future where you can keep promises without burning. If you want a single sentence to harden your financial decisions, hold this: pursue the effectual truth, not imagined perfection, but what works in the world. Results, not rhetoric, are the standard. Carry that into money. The effectual truth of your effort is the net you keep after costs, taxes, time, and risk. The effectual truth of a career strategy is the leverage it gives you in the next negotiation. The effectual truth of a partnership is the cash you split and the risk you hold. Measure that, not your mood. Quotes about greatness are cheap. Control over inputs and outputs is expensive and worth every restraint you practice to secure it. Keep one more warning close. Avoid contempt. Guard yourself from being despised or hated, because contempt invites plots and hatred welds enemies together. In your economy, contempt grows when you move goalposts, when you promise what you don't deliver, when you humiliate a partner to win a thread, when you treat customer money as your cushion instead of their trust. You can be firm without feeding contempt. Announce changes early. Explain the reason once in plain language. Leave critics a path to save face. Those moves keep your reputation strong and your opportunities open. The person who can discipline without humiliation builds a long runway. The person who turns corrections into spectacles builds a crowd and an exit. One myth remains to be cleared before anyone tries to weaponize your resolve. The bumper sticker you've heard about ends and means is a later distortion. The durable point is subtler. In real crises, clean ideals often clash with hard necessities, and leaders will be judged by outcomes in the world. Even then, the rule holds about avoiding hatred and respecting what people consider theirs. Read carefully, and you'll see the difference between cartoon villainy and pragmatic strategy. Keep that distinction in your pocket whenever someone tries to shame you for making adult trade-offs in your business. Your responsibility is not to perform sainthood. Your responsibility is to produce outcomes that keep people safe, paid, and free of avoidable chaos. Bring this down to the table where you actually eat. In a salary review, do not narrate how hard you worked. Present the 3 outcomes that moved revenue, reduced risk, or saved hours. State the number, stop. If you hear "ma possible," ask which metric will make it possible and what date will trigger a revision. If the answer is mush, quietly begin a search. That pause after your ask is part of your case. You negotiate in reality, not apology. In a client pitch, don't sell passion, sell the cash path. Here's the problem, here's how we measured it, here's the delivery plan, here's when your risk drops, here's when you get paid. Then you be quiet and let the map do the talking. Use absence as a financial tool. Don't attend meetings that expect unpaid solutions. Require an agenda and an owner or decline. Don't debate your rates in public. Publish them and step away. Don't answer every DM. Route inquiries into a form or a calendar link. Don't correct every rumor. Let your record stand and let your next shipment clarify what talk obscured. Absence is not pouting, it is prioritization. It frees the hours that fund your future. It also disorients hecklers. People who live on your reactivity run out of oxygen when you stop serving it to them. They either show up with facts or move on. The person who masters absence masters attention. The person who masters attention masters their market. Here is what happens psychologically to opponents when you live like this. They begin to doubt their own words because you refuse to wrestle in the theater of image and keep pulling the conversation back to delivery. They look insecure because showing off gasps for air next to calm metrics. Some even sabotage themselves, overpromising to outshine your steadiness or escalating tactics that alienate the very customers they wanted to recruit. You didn't win the argument. You managed your power and let them showcase their lack of control. That is how you make noisy rivals harm themselves while you keep accumulating receipts. What looks like patience from the outside is actually the deliberate use of silence and time to make arrogance run in circles until it trips. Return once more to capability and luck. Capability in money is your ability to reorganize reality, cutting a cost you once treated as fixed, turning a waste stream into a product, renegotiating a lease, cross-training your team so vacations don't halt revenue, learning a skill that eliminates a vendor. Luck is the shock you cannot command, a platform rule change, a sudden illness, a customer's bankruptcy. Your strength appears when you treat every shock as a design brief. Ask, how do I rebuild so this failure cannot happen the same way twice? That is how you become untouchable, not because you never fall, but because each fall reduces your surface area for the next hit. The river image is your weekly reminder to reinforce banks in fair weather. Debt belongs here as well. Borrowing for assets that throw off cash can expand your reach. Borrowing for optics is a trap that turns your calendar into collateral. When lenders or investors can seize the very advantage that makes you valuable, you have built a cage with chrome bars. Read terms with a fox's suspicion. Model bad case scenarios with a lion's courage. Ask what happens if revenue halves or rates double. If the plan becomes, we would beg, you are already begging, just not yet on paper. Own your force whenever you can. If you must borrow, borrow in ways that keep the steering wheel in your hands. The difference between leverage and a leash is who can yank the line. Order is wealth's quiet engine. If you are forever hustling for the next opportunity, you will never build the system that keeps opportunities from owning you. The wealthy sequence their effort. Foundation first, spectacle later. They set up the accounts, the legal frame, the bookkeeping rhythm, the backup plan, the reporting cadence, the documentation that lets another competent person step in. Only then do they pour fuel on the fire. This is why their public moves look effortless. The effort happened where eyes were absent, where silence protects thinking and system building outcompetes showmanship. If you want glamour, go ahead and chase it. If you want power, build the routine that prints calm. What about kindness? You are not being asked to become cruel. You are being asked to make kindness sustainable. If your generosity depends on today's applause, it vanishes the moment the crowd gets bored. If your generosity depends on systems that keep you solvent and sane, it grows with time. The heart of the warning about generosity is simple. Give in ways that do not force you to take twice as much tomorrow. Write a charity budget before the first donation goes out. Fund it when revenue arrives. Keep your promise even when nobody is clapping. That is what immunity feels like in a generous life. The ability to keep helping because the help did not cannibalize the engine that powers it. Watch your body as you practice this. Your shoulders drop when you stop defending yourself and let the numbers speak. Your breath slows when you stop reacting to every ping and start scheduling answers. Your evenings brighten when you stop arguing online and start building assets offline. The confidence you envied in others is often just the byproduct of routines that shield their attention from cheap theft. Build those routines. They cost discipline now and pay calm forever. And calm, in a noisy age, reads like power. People don't know how to measure it, but they feel it, and they edit their behavior around it. Let's talk about reputation. There's the agreeable kind that gets invited everywhere because it nods along and laughs on time. Then there is the stronger kind that gets trusted with serious problems because it delivers under pressure and refuses to lie. The first is a good reputation in the shallow sense, pleasing, malleable, easily cheered. The second is a strong reputation, feared by the unserious, respected by the competent, and expensive to move. The first dissolves when you stop entertaining. The second hardens when you enforce your standards. Ask yourself which kind you are building, and ask yourself which kind you would hire if the stakes were your future. The answer will drag your posture into alignment faster than any aphorism. Consider 3 theaters where these rules pay: the office, the marketplace, and the home. In the office, the person who says, "Here is the metric, here is the deadline, here is the result," rises past the person who floods the room with enthusiasm and no follow-through. In the marketplace, the seller who states the price, states the scope, and then does the work is quietly preferred to the one who keeps working with you until the boundary melts and resentment curdles the deal. In the home, the partner who protects sleep, budget, and attention builds a sanctuary. The partner who spends tomorrow's energy to buy a smile tonight slowly poisons both. These are not moral sermons, they are descriptions of incentives. Let's get granular with silence. Imagine a meeting where someone lobs a vague accusation at you to knock you off balance. "I just feel like you're not being transparent." You could pour paragraphs into the air, or you could reply, "That's incorrect. The numbers are in the report." Then you stop. What happens? The accuser must either produce a fact or retreat to feelings, which exposes the tactic. In another room, a competitor tries to bait you online with mockery. You could fight, or you could post your shipping schedule for the next release and leave. The audience learns who moves the world and who just moves text. Silence, deployed with precision, is not emptiness. It is a selective spotlight that weakens theater and strengthens proof. Here are short, sharp, truthful phrases that end a fight without building a new one. That claim is false. The invoice tells the story. We can continue under the signed terms or pause now. This isn't a match for us. That doesn't work for me. We can revisit after payment clears. Let's return to facts. Each sentence closes a door without starting a blood feud. Each signals steadiness. Each forces the other side to commit to reality or to overextend. If they overextend, they teach the room who they are. If they return to reality, the work resumes. Either way, you win by refusing to spend your power defending your power. Let's study attention theft. The modern economy mints fortunes by hijacking your impulses. If every ping can pull you, someone else owns your calendar. If every insult can hook you, someone else owns your mind. The way out is boring and royal. Put your phone in another room while you do the work that feeds your next quarter. Answer DMs in a batch at a time you choose. Turn comments off where you can't afford debate. Send a single link instead of entering a labyrinth of chats. Your goal is immunity, a presence so composed that random noise can't move you. People call that arrogance when they want free access. People call it professionalism when they need results. Think of control as gravity. When you hold it, objects quietly orbit. You don't have to push, you simply sustain your mass, your standards, your schedule, your systems, and things arrange around you. The opposite is frantic thrashing. You spend your days sprinting from interruption to interruption, and every sprint announces that your orbit has collapsed. The cure is unglamorous. Choose the few moves that count, design the week that executes them, and then remove everything that dilutes the signal. When someone tries to upend your plan with urgency you did not create, let their emergency return to them. You are building an engine, not performing CPR on every passing panic. Ask uncomfortable questions because the answers are levers. If this job vanished tomorrow, what assets of mine would remain? If this client fired me, what list could I still email? If my partner's affection cooled, what routines would keep our life intact while we repair? If this platform banned me, what routes would carry my work anyway? These are not fearful questions. They are the questions that turn fear into preparation. Every honest answer becomes a project. Every project strengthens immunity. Every piece of immunity increases your power to negotiate without begging and to decline without ceremony. Study incentives, the way a pilot studies weather. What does this person get paid for? What does their audience reward? What risk do they actually hold? Who benefits if you hurry? Who benefits if you delay? Who needs theater and who needs throughput? This is not cynicism, it is compassion for reality. Once you see incentives, you stop taking most slights personally because you realize they are just people doing math badly. You also stop making noble speeches to the wrong crowd. You present costs and benefits. You state the boundary. You invite the yes that's real and the no that's clean. Everything else is wind. Let's put these principles in scenes so you can feel them. Scene 1. A founder sits with a potential investor who loves the product and hates the terms. The investor demands control over hiring for alignment. The founder smiles once and says, "We keep executive authority." Happy to create reporting. Then silence. The investor bluffs. The founder opens the deck to the customer backlog and the retention curve. Silence again. The investor either respects control and comes inside it, or he walks. Either outcome is a win. Scene 2. A mid-level manager faces a team that expects weekend heroics to fix poor planning. The manager posts the calendar, highlights the buffer built into the plan, and says, "We will not subsidize repeated misses." After Monday, we cut scope. Then they leave for dinner. The team either aligns or reveals who needs a different job. Will some call the manager cold? Sure. Will the numbers improve? Yes. Which opinion pays the mortgage? Scene 3. A creator gets dragged by a stranger for a clipped quote. The creator reposts the full clip with the date, adds, "Context matters, the full piece is here," and returns to work. No apology tour, no rage reel. The algorithm starves on the silence. The audience sees the receipts, and by Friday, the clip belongs to the news cycle graveyard while the creator's next release climbs. Scene 4. A parent faces a relative who guilt trips about spending during the holidays. The parent says, "We planned our budget in October. We're staying with it." Then they propose a walk. The relative has to choose between connection and control. Either way, the household survives because the plan was built in calm, and calm is a shield. Do you notice the pattern? In every scene, the person who owns their pace owns the room. That pace is not an accident. It is the product of designing for immunity. You decide when your workday ends, and then you end it. You decide what your brand will not do, and then you let opportunities pass that violate it. You decide which metrics define success, and then you ignore applause that does not move those metrics. Over months, this becomes an aura. People feel it before they can name it. They stop throwing cheap shots because cheap shots bounce. They start presenting better deals because lowballing you is embarrassing. If you're looking for the secret, it's this: become expensive to move. Reframing is a cousin of silence. When someone tries to brand your boundary as arrogance, you reframe the narrative without picking up the gauntlet. We value deep work. This protects it. We commit only to what we can keep. We don't discount. We adjust scope. These statements are not apologies. They are simple mirrors that show how your rule serves the work and, by extension, the buyer. If someone keeps pressing after that, you have your signal. They don't want excellence, they want extraction. The meeting is already over. It just hasn't been scheduled that way yet. Redirection is another tool. When a heckler targets you in public, speak to the crowd. We ship again on the 15th. The roadmap is posted. Customer support is at the link. You do not answer the taunt because the taunt is not your customer. You redirect your power into the channel that pays. The heckler looks like they scored a point until they realize the audience walked away to buy. And there's nothing lonelier than a bully performing for empty seats. Underneath all of this is a simple discipline. You move decisions from your mouth into your calendar. You run your week like a contract. You write when you write, sell when you sell, and rest when you rest. You enforce your own deadlines before you enforce anyone else's. You forgive yourself for not being everywhere because everywhere is a thief. You practice the sentence, "I'm not available," without adding a paragraph of autobiography. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not invested in your success. You make your existence the answer. In time, you look different, and then you get treated differently. Let's map the psychology that makes this work. People watch for cues of control. They listen less to what you claim and more to how you handle friction. When you absorb an insult and reply with a fact, they feel stability. When you decline the bait and return to the plan, they feel relief. When you move at the pace you chose, they feel competence. That feeling changes their calculations. They stop testing you because testing you is costly. They stop gossiping about you because gossiping doesn't change your calendar. They start protecting your time because protecting your time gets the result they want. You didn't change their hearts, you changed their incentives. Bring in the long view. Building immunity is not about playing statue. It's about designing a life that survives shocks without drama. You choose savings over status so that one layoff doesn't erase your spine. You choose skills over stunts so that one algorithm tweak doesn't erase your reach. You choose partners who honor boundaries so that one request doesn't erase your evening. Over years, those choices gather like bricks. People will call it luck. Let them. You will call it sleep. There is a temptation to chase exceptions. But what about that one leader who gives everything away and still wins? You don't see the balance sheet. You don't see the systems. You don't see the quiet lines in the sand enforced by an assistant while the smile beams on stage. Do not build your life on anecdotes that make for good dinner stories and bad Tuesdays. Build on math. If a move compels you to lie later, don't make it. If a deal requires your panic to function, don't sign it. If a relationship collapses when you stop overfunctioning, let it collapse. Nature hates a vacuum. Better relationships will form around your new control. What if you slip? You will. You'll answer a bait with a paragraph and feel the old heat rise. You'll overshare to look relatable and feel hollow after. You'll accept a cost because you wanted to be the hero and spend the weekend swallowing resentment. Good. Use the sting. Write what you wish you had said in one sentence. Block time on your calendar for the task you avoided. Raise the price of the thing you discounted to buy peace. Each correction makes future errors rarer. Each small recovery proves you are not at the mercy of your reflexes. That confidence is not ego, it is data gathered from disciplined repairs. Chances are you already know a person who radiates this. They do not apologize for their rate. They do not chase. They do not panic when someone else does. They answer slowly and move quickly. They are not cold. They are warm around the fire they keep burning. People tell stories about how lucky they are, how doors open for them, how they always land on their feet. The boring truth is that they built immunity brick by brick, and they defend it like it's oxygen. When the storm comes, they don't pray for a miracle. They walk to the shelter they poured in the summer. Close the loop by returning to the first mistake. Buying approval with unsustainable generosity. If you must perform goodness to be accepted, you will be exiled the first time you protect your future. If you must purchase praise, you will drown in the interest. If you must talk to be seen, you will be invisible when you need quiet to think. Flip the game. Let your acts of aid come from a budget designed in calm and funded in advance. Let your kindness be boring and relentless, not theatrical and brittle. Let your words be few, your contracts clear, your promises kept, and your schedule sovereign. And when someone calls you arrogant for living this way, understand the translation: I could move you before, I can't move you now. So here is your week, drawn tight and clear. Decide what you will deliver and by when. Decide what you will not do even if begged. Put percentage-based transfers on every inflow before you see the money. Price with courage and trade concessions rather than donate them. Keep agreements in writing, not in chat. If someone baits you, let silence dissolve the hook. If someone calls you arrogant, return them to the numbers. If someone asks for generosity, give in a way that doesn't force you to betray your future self. Build levees while the river is low. Wear the fox and the lion when you must. Own your force and avoid the actions that would make people hate or despise you. Those moves don't just protect your account. They build the kind of steady, unbothered aura that money recognizes and gravitates toward. That is how you stop being easy to move and start becoming untouchable in the only way that matters. Not beyond criticism, but beyond panic. Carry this into each room you enter. Breathe, measure, decide, execute, and let your silence carry weight others can trust more than performance. That rhythm is control made visible, and it turns chaos into strength.